In the southern Lebanese city of Nabatieh, grief and defiance blend into one. Hundreds gather beneath a haze of smoke and flags, holding up portraits of fallen Hezbollah fighters, men killed in the latest round of Israeli airstrikes. Rows of coffins wrapped in the green and yellow banners of Hezbollah line the streets. These are the bodies of 5 men, part of what locals call the resistance. According to Israeli defense sources, 4 of them were members of Hezbollah's elite Radwan force, struck in an air raid in Kafr Rumman just a day earlier. Their funerals have become more than mourning rituals. They are declarations of persistence. Supporters chant slogans against Israel, vowing revenge and resilience. The air is tense, heavy with loss and anger. As the procession moves through Nabatieh's main street, the names of the dead echo from loudspeakers. Relatives follow closely, their faces drawn, their steps slow. Each coffin tells the story of another escalation, another reminder that Lebanon's fragile calm hangs by a thread. And while Lebanon mourns in Jerusalem, Israel's message is one of warning. Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, said, "It is clear that we will exercise our right to self-defense within the terms of the ceasefire. We will not allow Lebanon to become a renewed front against us, and we will act as necessary." These are the consequences of that policy. The wreckage of vehicles smoulders in Kafr Rumman, the aftermath of the strikes Israel says targeted Hezbollah infrastructure and personnel. The Israeli army claims the attacks were part of ongoing efforts to prevent the militant group from rearming and re-establishing command posts near the border. In Tehran, a different scene unfolds, defiant crowds waving Hezbollah, Palestinian and Iranian flags. The death of Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's historic leader killed in an Israeli airstrike last year, remains a rallying cry. Posters of Nasrallah and Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei fill the square as chants rise against Israel and the United States. The events in Nabatieh and Kafr Rumman are the latest test of a ceasefire signed a year ago between Israel and Hezbollah, a truce that ended 2 months of intense border conflict in late 2023. That conflict, itself an outgrowth of the Gaza war, saw Hezbollah launch hundreds of rockets into northern Israel, and Israel respond with a series of devastating airstrikes. When the guns finally fell silent, both sides claimed victory, but the peace was uneasy. Since then, the Israeli military has continued limited operations across the Lebanese border, targeting what it calls reconstruction and rearmament networks of Hezbollah. The Lebanese militia, weakened but not dismantled, has vowed to resist any attempt to disarm. For Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the situation presents a difficult balance, maintaining deterrence without reigniting a regional war. In his televised remarks, Netanyahu accused Hezbollah of rearming under Iranian supervision and warned Beirut's government that Israel's patience is not limitless. He said, "Lebanon must fulfill its international commitments to disarm Hezbollah as mandated by the United Nations. If it fails to act, we will." That statement, interpreted by analysts as both a warning and an ultimatum, underscores Israel's growing frustration with the Lebanese state's inability to control Hezbollah's military wing. Defense officials in Jerusalem have emphasized that recent strikes are preventive, aimed at halting weapons transfers and engineering projects rebuilding tunnels along the border. Lebanese officials, meanwhile, accuse Israel of violating the truce and undermining stability. A senior government source in Beirut told AFP that Israel's continued incursions risk dragging Lebanon back into war. Hezbollah itself has remained largely silent about the latest strikes, but its affiliated media outlets broadcast footage of the funerals with defiant slogans and speeches. At one rally, a cleric declared, "Our martyrs are proof that resistance is not a choice, but an obligation." That rhetoric resonates deeply among Hezbollah supporters who see their struggle as inseparable from the Palestinian cause, especially after Israel's operations in Gaza. In Washington, the US administration continues to press Lebanon to implement the disarmament provisions of UN Resolution 1701, passed after the 2006 war. But the reality on the ground makes that goal elusive. Hezbollah remains Lebanon's most powerful armed group, stronger than the Lebanese army in many respects. American diplomats have also quietly urged restraint on Israel's part. A senior State Department official told reporters in recent weeks that any escalation on the northern front would endanger fragile diplomatic efforts in Gaza. Yet the cycle of action and retaliation persists. Israeli defense analysts argue that Hezbollah's close alignment with Iran means Tehran's regional strategy, not Beirut's decisions, determines the pace of confrontation. The death of Hassan Nasrallah in September 2024 marked a historic turning point. He had led Hezbollah for over 3 decades, transforming it from a guerrilla movement into a political and military powerhouse across the region. His assassination in an Israeli strike on a Beirut suburb sparked widespread outrage and vows of vengeance from Iran and allied groups. In Tehran's squares, supporters continue to wave his image, turning his death into a symbol of resistance. For many in Lebanon, however, his loss also left a leadership vacuum, one that Hezbollah's interim command has struggled to fill. Back in southern Lebanon, civilians bear the brunt of renewed hostilities. Villagers in Nabatieh and surrounding towns speak of sleepless nights, empty schools and fading hope. Many here remember the war of 2006 and fear history may repeat itself. Humanitarian organizations warn that further escalation could trigger another mass displacement, one that Lebanon, already in economic collapse, can ill afford. At a small bakery near the funeral route, a man watching the procession murmurs, "Every few years, we bury new names." Nothing changes. The conflict between Israel and Hezbollah remains one of the most enduring fault lines in the Middle East. Both sides invoke self-defense, both claim deterrence. Yet between these narratives lies a fragile reality. The border remains one of the most heavily militarized zones in the world. In Israel's north, communities have rebuilt shelters and revived emergency drills. Across the border, Hezbollah fighters train discreetly in rural compounds, preparing for what many believe is inevitable, another round. Military experts warn that if another full-scale war erupts, it could draw in multiple fronts from Syria to the Red Sea, with devastating consequences for the entire region. In Tel Aviv, Israeli citizens express both fatigue and resolve. Some see the operations in Lebanon as necessary to secure their northern border. Others fear an endless loop of violence that achieves little. One Israeli reservist told Channel 13, "Every time we hit them, they come back stronger. We need diplomacy, not just airstrikes, but for Netanyahu's government, diplomacy seems increasingly distant, overshadowed by the politics of survival and deterrence. Across the border, Hezbollah sympathizers frame the struggle as existential, a fight not just for land, but for dignity and sovereignty." Iran's influence looms large. Tehran continues to back Hezbollah financially and militarily, viewing it as a frontline deterrent against Israel. Analysts note that recent coordination between Iran and Russia, particularly in air defense systems, could further embolden Hezbollah's strategic posture. Meanwhile, Arab states such as Egypt and Jordan call for restraint, fearing spillover effects. The United Nations interim force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, has reported multiple ceasefire violations in recent weeks, but says both sides have stopped short of full confrontation, for now. As the sun sets over Nabatieh, the funeral crowds thin out, leaving behind flags fluttering in silence. The question remains, how long can this uneasy balance last? For Israel, the answer may depend on Hezbollah's next move. For Lebanon, it hinges on political will and the ability to avoid becoming once again the battleground for regional rivalries. Benjamin Netanyahu's warning still echoes, "We will not allow Lebanon to become a renewed front against us." In Beirut's narrow alleys and along the border hills, many fear that front may already be taking shape. As night falls, the lights of southern Lebanon flicker amid distant thunder, not from weather, but from artillery. The images from Nabatieh capture a cycle that has repeated for decades: strike, retaliation, mourning, and resolve.